My name is Vathanasin. I'm a senior associate with Laura James and Co. So my work primarily revolves around family law, and that covers divorce, personal protection orders, maintenance applications, even things like lasting power of attorneys and wills as well. I think that family law is just something that is very relatable. It is something that we will unfortunately have to go through at some point in our lives. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be even things like doing a will, for example, or a lasting power of attorney, right? But it is something that the majority of us do go through at some point in time, and unfortunately, not many of us have the resources to get legal assistance. I mean, most of us are laypersons. We don't have the legal background, the training, the information, and knowledge. I mean, the internet is there, yes, but there are still people who don't have access to these things, and I think that's why it's important to provide assistance to this specific group of people. I think Singaporeans don't necessarily realize how bad things can be sometimes. I think as a whole, we live in a very, very privileged society, myself included. I think, in terms of an example, I remember one of these legal aid cases that I took on. This was a lady who hasn't been working for quite some years now. She's completely living off financial aid and assistance. And then subsequently, I remember calling her and asking her, giving her updates about her case, which was ongoing at the time. And she was just telling me, "Oh, Rebecca, I don't have money for food," and it's just not something that I think we expect. How does anyone in our country, we think about Orchard Road, Ion, all the shopping, we have people that don't even have money for food, and I think that's something that we forget about or don't realize is happening in the country. I think so. I think so. I think that there are a lot of factors that need to be considered. For example, you could have a housewife who's going through a very bad breakup with her husband. There is family violence involved, for example, and she may not necessarily want to, or rather, it might not be so easy for her to just walk out and get the assistance that she needs because she may fear the repercussions that come with taking action against her husband, right? So it's not so easy, I would say. I think the main one would be immigration issues. Foreign spouses, as you just pointed, they're foreigners. They're not local. A lot of the times they are here on dependent visas, and that's tied to their spouse. So I think sometimes, actually, I know a lot of times the reason why some of these individuals are very hesitant in terms of reaching out and getting help is because they're very afraid that by taking out a court application or just taking any form of action whatsoever may compel the spouse to then cancel the visa, right? And that puts them in a very precarious position, especially if there are children involved. So what we do end up seeing is a lot of these foreign spouses just, putting up with the family violence, putting up with a lot of things just so that they could stay here in Singapore and then in turn be there for their kids. Sometimes yes, sometimes yes, but I think it's very important to remember that everyone is different. You can't, I mean, I could I could look at my work and think, oh my god, I should never get married because, this is what's going to happen or whatever. But yeah, I mean, everyone is different and I can't hold them to the same standard. In terms of effect, it can be very trying sometimes. I actually remembered this client who got pregnant very, very young. And she basically, when I was asking her about her circumstances, because this was a maintenance application, so I was asking her how she was getting by, and basically she was telling us about how her husband was very naive at the time. So he said, "Listen, don't work, quit your job. You're pregnant. You need to take care of yourself." And he basically agreed to give her money on a daily basis to help her get by, and that was $5 a day, which is really not much in the grand scheme of things. But it's really amazing because after she gave birth, the husband disappeared, and believe it or not, she was actually able to squirrel away money from the $5 that she had every day. And I think I remember this very distinctively because I remember it going to a very nice restaurant with my partner later that evening, and we sat there and we were just thinking to ourselves, oh my goodness, our meal cost more than what this girl got in a week. And we just didn't know how she was able to survive. And we actually asked ourselves at that point in time, should we give this a go? It's kind of like a little child. I mean, we in no way trivializing what she was going through, but I think it was a very big reality check for us because we sat there and asked ourselves, could we have survived on $5 a day? That's $35 in a week. If you take into account transport and everything else, it's not easy, right? And I think it's that kind of situations that really compel me, and I suppose other volunteer lawyers as well, to basically step in and say, okay, you know what, we need to get you some help.
My name is Edwin, and I have been a volunteer lawyer with the Pro Bono office even before it was set up, and so it's about maybe over 20 years now, give or take. I think we are in a very privileged profession, and we are also in a privileged position to be able to represent people in court. And not everyone has that access. So it all started when I was a young lawyer at Alban Tay, Mathani and De Silva. And my bosses at that time were very encouraging, and they said, go ahead and volunteer and give of your time. And they gave me the time, to do that. So, shout out really to the team back then. And that was what sparked my, interest in pro bono work. I would say yes. And the reason I say yes is because the pro bono cases that I handle, I usually remember them. Much of the other civil cases I do, sometimes you don't even know one case from the other because they're all fairly similar in nature. Of course, every case is different. But the ones I do remember are the pro bono cases, two in particular. One was a young mother, single mother with a baby who, literally had stolen milk from a supermarket and was charged for theft in dwelling. And, you read or you hear about things like mothers stealing milk. You never think it really happens, but it does happen, right? When I got that case, it was no longer just a cliche. It was actually someone real who did that out of love for her baby. All I did, no big deal. All I did was a plea mitigation. Of course, at that time, I made reps for her and all that, and managed to ultimately, I think the sentence was, a stern warning was given, right? And the funny thing is we reconnected on Facebook and we still are Facebook friends, right? I don't know her that well at all, but that baby girl is now a very nice grown-up, I think 18-year-old girl now. So, it's that was a particularly interesting story I felt that maybe I could share. Maybe one other case I will mention is probably the only case I did where I actually did a trial. And this was not a class case, but in the end, my co-counsel and I, Mr. Rajan Nair, we decided we wouldn't charge the client. And he was charged with theft in dwelling as well. I think the result was we managed to get it reduced to simple theft. But it was very rewarding because a young man really had a second chance, right? And what he did, as all young persons do, really was done out of stupidity rather than bad intent or malicious intent. And that's something that I feel as a society we need to be more forgiving. I think given the way things are these days, people are far, far too quick to judge and jump on the bandwagon in respect of a certain opinion or judgment. Pro bono work makes us, or at least I speak only for myself, makes me more humble in a sense that, you really are in touch with the problems that, people face. To be honest with you, I think it takes a lot for someone to actually apply for legal aid. We think that it's accessible, but have we ever thought that from the person who wants help's point of view, that it's actually a very humbling experience? I've never applied for legal aid. I don't even know what the process is like. I don't even know whether it is a humane process. I can safely say I assume that the Pro Bono Society has made it a very dignified process. But no matter how dignified it is, the person coming to apply for it is well aware that the person is applying for legal help, right? And I think as lawyers, we have to appreciate that when we speak to that person. I think it's our duty as well as, I mean, not just a legal duty, but a moral duty to empathize with the person who's asking for that help. Um, and I know lawyers can, I think, I don't blame my brothers and sisters of the bar. Sometimes you hear every story and every sob story, you can get a little bit hard. But I think it's important to remind ourselves to always be that human person again when we're interacting with the candidate, or in this case the client. Yeah, come forward. I mean, first of all, there are plenty of volunteers who are here to want to help. Um, I think the I think they need to understand that for us we have pretty strict formalities and guidelines that govern how we help people. So in a way, having this very centralized system is for the benefit of everybody. It's efficient, and it's got the most number of resources. So come forward. Don't be afraid to make that application, and don't be afraid that anybody will see you any different, because we all need help. I may not need legal help, but I may need some other form of help, and I don't want to be. If I ever need that kind of help, I hope certainly that I will ask for it.